This assignment, we are going to use the mask mode or quick mask in Photoshop. And so I started here with a plan. I was going to put a guy riding a lizard. And so I went to Unsplash and I just grabbed a bunch of lizards that I thought might work and a few guys that I thought might work. I just clicked on the sample that I finished earlier. But so I looked through here and I found a lizard and a guy that looked like they might match up pretty well. And so for this assignment, I'm thinking the lizard is going to be larger than life here, and then the guy is going to sit on top of the lizard. So I'm going to take my lizard, which is going to be my background, put that in Photoshop. And wait and wait and wait for that to load. There it is. Cool. So there's my lizard. And I'm going to take my little cowboy here, put him in here as well. All right, I'm going to take a look at that, and I think I'm just going to get it kind of roughly to the size that I'm going to want it to be. Remember, when I'm sizing, I hold Shift while I grab the corner so that I don't get weird, squishy cowboys. All right, so I think he's probably going to be about that size. Then I press Enter. Now I can move him around after I click this button up here on the upper left. I'm going to go over to my layers here, and I see the cowboy. I'm going to rename that one Cowboy. And I'm going to right click on this layer and rasterize the layer so that now I can do manipulations to it that I want to do. Now I want to cut this guy out. Now, one thing that I'm noticing here is as I cut this out, there's going to be some parts left over that we're going to have to deal with in a minute, but that's okay. So I want to cut these guys out. If I hold Option and then I scroll with my my rolling button on my mouse, then I can zoom in and out that way. If I hold the space bar, then I get this hand and I can change my view that way as well. So when I'm working, I will hold Option and scroll with my mouse, and I hold the space bar and move to a different location. I do that quite a bit when I'm working. Now, I'm ready to start my quick mask. So I'm going to click on this button down here on the other bottom left, the quick mask mode. So I'm going to click on that. And then I am going to click on my paintbrush, or if you just push B, you can get to your paintbrush. And whatever I paint is going to be not selected when I come out of the quick mask mode. So you'll see that in a minute. Before I start, I want to change my hardness of my brush. For this particular application, I want it to be a rigid. I don't want it to be any fluff on the end of it. And I also want to change the size a little bit as I get started. And you'll notice if I change the size, I can see that change if I just bring my cursor off of this menu. Now I'm going to start drawing with or painting with a paintbrush, and I'm just everything that I want to be not selected, I make red. And so I'm going around. It doesn't matter what color you have over here. Well, if you just leave this as black. How about let's just say that. Leave that color black. And so when you do this for assignment, you want to get in really close and do a good job. Right now, I'm just kind of trying to do it quickly enough so that you're not watching a super long video. And so I'm going to do kind of somewhat of a rough cut here. So for some of these smaller parts in here, oops, notice how I went over a little bit. I can go to my eraser tool, and I can erase that extra bit that I did there. If I switch this, that doesn't work. Never mind. I'll just keep it. Doesn't matter. All right, paintbrush again. So if I was doing this for an assignment, I would get really close and try to do a really good job selecting. But for this tutorial, I'm not too worried about it. I want to get pretty close so you can see what it is I'm doing here. But I don't want you to have to watch this video for a long time. So I want to get every part of this guy that I want to keep, because I'm going to delete everything else. Now I have to decide, do I want this guy to be riding bareback or do I want him on a saddle? And I think I would like him on the saddle. I think that'd be more, I don't know, funny, I guess, if he had a saddle on the lizard. So I'm going to keep the saddle. So everything I want to keep, then I need to paint red. I can change my size by right-clicking to make this a little bit bigger. When you get into a corner, there's a couple ways to do the corner. One is just overshoot it and then go back and delete. That way works pretty well. Another way is to make your brush a little bit smaller so that it fits in the corner better. All right, getting pretty close here. Getting this. Can't really tell if that's supposed to be there or not. I'm going to leave it off. The spurs are great. Now he's holding this cane deal here, and so I'm going to make my cursor pretty small. I'm going to get in close. Now I would normally use a different tool to get something this kind of straight, but we're using the quick mask today, so I'm going to select all of this, bunch of this stuff in here. All right, looks pretty good. Now I am going to also select some of this rope. I just pushed E so that I could delete. E is the eraser. And push B to get my paintbrush back. Now I'm going to do the hat right here, and then I'll be all ready to do some deleting. Make it small, get this corner. E, delete. B, continue to fill in. All right, so I just did Command 0 to get a better, to zoom out. Okay, this is good enough for this. So I am going to now exit quick mode, or quick mask mode, and you see that everything is selected except for the stuff that I painted red. And so I'm just going to push delete, and all of that other stuff goes away. Then I'm going to do Command D for deselect. And now I just pushed V to get the move tool. Now I have my cowboy here. Now notice when I deleted all that stuff, I still have that extra junk on the outside. I'll deal with that in a minute. But right now I want to position my guy so that he's on here the way I want. Now he's not quite, I need to rotate this guy. So I'm going to do Command T so that I get, so I can change the rotation of this guy here. And I just notice how my cursor changes to these arrows. That means I can turn this way. And then if I put it in the corner, then the arrows say, okay, do you want me to make it bigger or smaller? And I think that's the size I want. Maybe I want them a little bit small. I hold Shift, and then I also hold Command, and then I release my mouse button before I release my Shift or my Command to change the size of this guy. I think it needs to be rotated just a little bit more. There we go. Good. Okay, now I'm going to press return when I'm all done. I'm going to erase, so I pushed E, and I'm going to change the size of this eraser. Hardness is all the way up. I'm just going to quick get rid of this stuff that's still here. Part of my cowboy. All right, now I'm well on my way now to be done with this, but there's a couple things that I would like to change here. One, I want this, the reins to kind of like, to go in this guy's mouth. Thankfully, they just kind of match up, so it kind of already goes into his mouth like that. Now I might go back and get some other pieces of that bridle and stuff and stick it in there. But for right now, I'm just going to let the reins go right into his mouth that way. Now, I'm going to look at my cowboy and see how he fits on this and on this lizard. And one thing I'm noticing here is this saddle, this part of the saddle should go behind this leg. And so I'm going to delete along this leg to make it look like that part of the saddle goes behind it. Also, this foot should probably go behind the leg as well. So I'm going to let that go back there. So that looks a little bit better, like he's actually on there. This section right here, I'm going to do that as well to make it look like the saddle is actually sitting on this lizard. Now, another thing that I would recommend highly if you're doing this kind of a thing is to put a bit of a drop shadow underneath the saddle here, because it looks like the saddle is just stuck on here. The other issue here is that there's this, the focus, it's out of focus here on the lizard, but in focus on the saddle. I'm not going to worry about that too much at this time, but that's something that if I wanted to like really fool somebody, I might look at. I made a new layer, and I'm going to put that layer between the cowboy and the background. This layer is where I'm going to put my drop shadow. And so I'm going to now get my paintbrush tool, and I'm going to make sure I've got it black here. I'm going to zoom in to my saddle area, and I'm going to right click because I want this to be softer. I don't want it to be super hard. The size is a little bit less, maybe a little bit bigger. Okay, now I'm going to draw or paint my drop shadow. Notice how I didn't really put much here. That's because this leg would be covering this up, so any shadow should be behind the leg. And so I'm going to keep drawing here. Going to put a little bit right there, a little bit right there, and some around here. Oops, I might delete that came over that leg right there. And then up, a little bit more up there. Okay, so I'm going to press E. I'm going to erase that little bit that got over that leg. So there shouldn't be any shadow from the saddle on that leg. Now that's a little much on the shadows, Mr. V. You're right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep this layer selected, and then I'm going to go to fill and or opacity and mess with those and see what I can do to make that look a little bit better. So right there, that looks pretty good right there. If you change the opacity, it changes the same kind of thing, but fill helps, it keeps some of the texture still in a different way than the opacity does. So I might mess around with both of them and see which one looks best. That looks pretty good. Looks like I have a bit of a shadow there that kind of is consistent with the other shadows that are going on here. And that is how you use the mask tool to do the larger than life Photoshop assignment. And good luck with that. When you're done with this, make sure you save it as a JPEG. Save it. So File, Save, so that you can go back and make any changes you might need. So first save it. Oh goodness, this is okay. So save it, Wizard, Cowboy, whatever you want to save it, and then when you're done saving it as a Photoshop file, now save it as a JPEG. Oops, once it's done finally saving, here it says 83%. I want this format to not be a Photoshop format. I want it to be a JPEG. So I'm going to save it as a JPEG. This is my final assignment that I'm going to turn in. I click Save. And now, there in that folder, I have this file. Now, notice 12.5 megabytes is huge. So I might make this a little bit smaller. 2.4 feels a lot better. So I'm going to click OK on that. And there I have my Lizard Cowboy all done. And I can turn that JPEG in and have the assignment done. Looks pretty good. Pretty happy with that. All right. Good luck.